Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now guys, it looks as though the chicken is slowly coming home to roost regarding the Nigerian election. So some of the people who have given the election a pass mark and let it go are now actually coming back to actually say what their true opinions are of that election, because they are now seeing that this election, the way it was ran and the resistance to it is very fervent, and they're now coming to say that, look, listen, this is really our observation. So guys, I bring you this. We saw systematic failures in Nigeria's 2019 elections, and that is according to the European Union observers. We saw systematic failures in Nigeria's 2019 elections, EU observers. So now here's the body of that story. The European Union Election Observation Mission, EU EOM, in Nigeria has said Nigeria's presidential, governorship, federal and state parliamentary elections were characterized by systematic failures. It also said the EU observers knew nothing about the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC server that was allegedly used to transmit results of the 2019 general elections. Briefing journalists in Abuja on the EU EOM's report, the Deputy Chief Observer for the EU, Anna Roberts, said the mission relied on results that were released by INEC. Roberts, whilst fielding questions, noted that the EU mission in Nigeria was unaware of an INEC server by which results were transmitted during the election. The EU had to rely on INEC's explanation in results transmission, she said. The main opposition party, People's Democratic Party, had claimed that an INEC server was used to transmit results of the election. Maria Arena, the EU chief observer, had earlier presented a final report with recommendations for electoral reforms. She said the EU EOM had 91 observers on the ground for the presidential and federal parliamentary elections across Nigeria. Arena added that 73 observers were deployed for the governorship and state parliamentary elections, whilst 20 observers were used for the supplementary elections. Following its observation mission, she said the EU EOM had 30 recommendations on how to improve future electoral process in Nigeria. The mission concluded that the systematic failings seen in the election and the relatively low level of voter participation showed the need for fundamental electoral reform. The EU report prioritized 7 recommendations of the 30, one of which was that Nigeria to strengthen INEC's processes for the collation of results to improve integrity and confidence in the electoral outcome. Another recommendation was for the Electoral Tribunal cover pre-election cases in order to improve access to remedy and to avoid petitions being taken to different courts at the same time. However, Festus Keyamo, spokesman for the All Progressive Congress Presidential Campaign Council, who addressed journalists afterwards, faulted the EU EOM for not coming to a conclusion in the report. He said the report reflects the overall wishes of Nigerians. That was the report by so many observers. If you are an observer, you should come to a definitive conclusion. Don't be dodgy about it. Don't run away from the fact, because we have 120,000 polling units across the country, and in all their reports, I don't think they discussed at most 500 polling units. If you observed certain anomalies, it could not have been more than 500 or 1,000 polling units. And if you do observe anomalies in those polling units, how does that substantially affect the results coming from the 120 polling units? Well, I'll tell you how that affects the results coming out of the 120,000 polling units. What they do is called a test sample. So you go to key locations all over the world, not all over the world, but all over the country, and do an assessment on, like, let's say about 10 in each state, for instance, spread across the state. So then the observations that you get from that 10, you then come together and collate it together. So if the observations from 10 polling units right across the 36 states of Nigeria run a similarity, then that similarity can then be projected to the 120,000 polling units, because these are different locations in different states, in individual states, in different states. So if these are the experiences that people are having that has been observed, then you can project that to reflect pretty much the experience of the 120,000 polling units. So they don't need to man 120,000 polling units. So that just shows how much of a dumps this Festus Keyamo guy is. So let's carry on. So it is not enough for you to discuss the anomalies. They must discuss the overall results coming from the entire country, whether it did reflect the wishes of the people. This is what we want to know, because they have problems in the US elections, there are problems in the EU and even the UK elections. For Christ's sake, we need a detailed analysis to come to a definitive conclusion about the overall results of the election. So this is Festus Keyamo quickly attacking this report, and obviously you know why Festus Keyamo is quickly attacking this report, because this report obviously has identified anomalies, and anomalies of course are wrongdoings, unusual behavior within the election, and of course Atiku Abubakar is still keeping the fight going for this election. So now with Atiku Abubakar keeping the fight going for this election, and the EU saying that observed anomalies within the election, that only then lends credence to Atiku Abubakar's challenge of this election. So it's very quick to try and shut that down. But then the EU should have come out a lot earlier to say that there were anomalies in this election, because we're late in the day now. And late in the game. So they are coming into the game towards the end, at the 89th minute of the game, when there's only 1 minute left to go, because they're in the process of trying to shut down this tribunal now. You see that Malam Buhari is already strong in the tribunal, and the APC are weighing down on them, and very soon they will just shut it down anyway, either by presidential fiat or veto or something. They'll just shut it down, because this is what these people do. They just sledgehammer everything. But what this Festus Keyamo is signaling is that he has identified that this report by the EU, it adds fresh impetus to the Atiku Abubakar challenge, because the Atiku Abubakar challenge is one that is really giving them sleepless nights, because they know that that election was rigged, and any real proper probe of that election will immediately cancel it out. And even though they know that all the people on the tribunal are their agents, they still don't have that confidence, because people are people, and sometimes that tribunal might be pricked by conscience, or gotten at by stronger people, and they might then have to surprise them by doing the right thing. So it's not over till it's over. They know that. This is why they got rid of Justice Onoke, you know, because he was in the anticipation of this tribunal, because they know that he's an Igbo man, so he might not have that loyalty to them. So they put that what's her name, that Balachua or something, I can't remember her name, but that lady that chaired the panel, who was actually a wife of APC. Remember, they did that. So all these things were putting slots in place to try and cover up this rigged election, which they know was rigged, which everybody knows was rigged, and which they are frightened that any real probe of this would expose it completely. So now the EU are also saying now there that they didn't really get full access to INEC, and they were relying on INEC to relay them results, and then they just signed it off, which really is not good enough, by the way. You cannot rely on INEC to relay you results and you just sign it off, because you are there to observe the process from step 1 till the end. So if you're observing the process from step 1 to the end, then you should have agents all the way through to see how the results are being collated on the ground and how they are being transmitted to the INEC head office. And you should also test that to join in the collation of the results in several locations and then see if that result tallies with what INEC is announcing. So this is what the EU should do, but then they're just seeing it as a junket. They just go to some African country, they get largest star codes, and then the African country gives them bribe, and then they get plenty of money to go and buy themselves a country house in whichever country they are coming from. This is really what they're just doing. They don't really care. They're just there to sign it off. They're under instructions from their country to go sign it off, and this is what they have done. But now the backlash against this election is now coming so fervently, and they're now beginning to see that this guy, really, this Buhari guy, another 4 years of him, is this something that anybody really can handle? Never mind the Nigerian state, the international community, can we even handle this guy? So now they're now having second thoughts, and they're now talking about anomalies. So the EU has now come out. Systematic failure is how they have described the Nigerian election. Rigged is the other word for that. Conversations in the comment section. This is what I usually invite, but before you come join me in the comment section to have a conversation, click on the red subscribe button so it turns gray. Click on the bell button, that way you're notified every time I drop a new video. Then come tell me what you're thinking in the comment section. So I'll leave you here, meet you there, but here I say peace.